Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to assume that the others are also following us maybe on YouTube. I've just started the YouTube connection, so just check your platform, and then you follow the link so that you can join us on YouTube. For those who are having problems with joining the Zoom class, we've received a couple of reports that some people are finding it hard to join the class on through the Zoom app. So we're going to post this class now on the YouTube link so that you can also follow us on the YouTube link. Having said that, let me formally welcome you to Nigeria Limited-EDI Batch 32 training, which is starting today, running till Friday. I want to hope that you had a wonderful, nice rest and you're ready to join us for the rest of the week on this training program. I'm sure you are all very familiar with why we are here, the program that we are running. It's an Agsmeis program run by the National Microfinance Bank for people who want to access the Agsmeis loan scheme to start their own businesses. That essentially is the reason, and I'm sure you're well advised about that before registering for the program. Having said that, you will find on, you can now take off, you can find on the screen a picture of an elderly gentleman and a young lady giving her some advices with respect to income sources. He's advising that if your salary is your only main source of income, you are one step away from poverty. What's saying in essence is that everybody needs an additional source, an alternative source of income. He's advising that we should not rely on only just one source of income. He's advising that in all that we do, we should ensure that we have multiple sources of income. This is a very, very wise advice that we also want to give our participants because we all know what the situation is in the country today, and not only in the country, but across the world, really. We find that most often our salaries, if we are in paid public employment or private sector employment, no matter the amount of money you are earning, chances are that it's not likely to be enough for you because there is every likelihood that your expense sheet will be much, much higher than what your income take-home pay is all about. Of course, we are familiar with our labor unions and the advice they keep giving each time they are calling workers out on strike. That's their take-home pay cannot take them home. And that basically is saying that, look, the salaries that were being paid is not enough for us to be able to meet our expenses. And then, of course, we all know what the salary structure is like in this country. Ours is a country where the minimum wage is just about 30,000 naira per month. That's the minimum wage. For those who are on that minimum wage, you can imagine what it is that would buy for them. How much would that do for them in terms of transportation, accommodation, feeding, children's school fees, and a host of other things? Okay, so if you are on that kind of wage, then of course the advice being given here by this elderly gentleman is definitely for you, and not only for people on minimum wage, for all of us. Of course, we have stories of our friends and relations who are outside of this country. We know that most of them are keeping multiple jobs in order to be able to meet their requirements. Jumping from one job to the other, 2-3 jobs at a time. That is the only way they're able to meet their bills. So this is a very, very good advice, which we also like to give to our participants. And I want to believe that even without being told, you must have advised yourself already about the importance of this approach, because for you to have come on this program, applying for the Agsmeis loan, it shows that you realize that, look, whatever it is that I'm doing currently, I definitely need another additional source of income. So it's an advice we like to give, and I hope that you take it to heart and then you work with it. Right. Having said that, let's now go to the our main topic for the day. Right. So on the screen is a topic for the day: entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for Agsmeis. Entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for Agsmeis. The training that we're providing, the 5 days training, is an entrepreneurship training. The National Microfinance Bank has its own syllabus, and which is basically on entrepreneurship training. There is, of course, ones for vocational training, that's for hands-on skills training, but this one basically is an entrepreneurship training, which is for training our participants on how to manage their business. Essentially, you're trying to access a loan to start your own business. So the training that we're providing is entrepreneurship that teaches you that, or rather updates their knowledge on how to manage your business, how to start your business, and how to manage your business. So basically what we'll be looking at today is entrepreneurship. And for us to discuss this subject, we have to start with the foundation topic. Okay, we have to lay the foundation for the training on entrepreneurship. So what we'll do in this particular topic is to provide a breakdown on entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? What does it entail? Who is an entrepreneur? What does an entrepreneur do? And a whole lot of the entire gamut of entrepreneurship. That's what we'll be looking at. And then the skills you require for entrepreneurship. What are the kind of skills that you require, okay, for entrepreneurship? What are the things that you need to know? What are the things that you should consider if you are going into business? All of those issues that will be highlighted in this training today. And then, of course, Agsmeis. What is Agsmeis? I'm sure you have come across the term before. Agsmeis, the Agsmeis loan scheme. Okay, we'll break down the Agsmeis loan scheme, how it came about, what it entails, what are its components, and why the government is supporting the initiators of this program to build it to the point where it is today, with so many people applying for it and being able to access the facility to be able to start their own businesses. So these are the things that we'll be looking at in this very topic today. Right. Having said that, let's look at the training objectives. What are the objectives of this training? First and foremost is understanding the Agsmeis loan scheme. We want to try and understand what the Agsmeis loan scheme is all about. What does it entail? How did the idea come about? What does it seek to achieve? And the rest of it. To expose participants to the objectives, components, and processes of achieving the goals of Agsmeis. That's the second objective. Of course, what are the objectives of Agsmeis? What are its components? And then the processes for achieving these goals. We'll break all that one down for you. Then to understand the concept of entrepreneurship. Like I said, the training that we are giving you, the 5-day training, is entrepreneurship training. So we'll have to break down and understand the whole concept of entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? What does it entail? Okay, what does an entrepreneur do? Who is an entrepreneur? Okay, so we'll look at all of those things. We'll give you examples of entrepreneurs, both locally and internationally, who would consider to be entrepreneurs, and then what kind of business we believe an entrepreneur is involved in. So by the time we break it down, you get a better understanding of what entrepreneurship is all about. And then finally, to prepare participants for a life, to expose participants to the skills required for entrepreneurship. So what are the kind of skills that you require for entrepreneurship? Okay, we'll look at all of those skills that you require. We'll look at the things that you need to know, what you need to have, the kind of mindset you should have when you want to go into entrepreneurship. So we'll be looking at all of those components of entrepreneurship. Finally, to prepare participants for a life of entrepreneurship. Like we like to say all the time, entrepreneurship it's not a short sprint. If you're looking at athletics, for example, it's not a 100-meter dash. Okay, it's not a 200-meter dash. It's a marathon. Okay, it's a marathon. It's a 3,000, 5,000 meter race. Okay, because it's lifelong. It's not something that you just start and then stop. Okay, if you're going to entrepreneurship, it's something that when you start, you are involved in it and you are in need for the whole hog. Okay, as long as it takes. Okay, to the very end, until what you started as a young acorn has grown up to be a mighty, mighty oak. So that's what we're looking at. How do you go the long haul in entrepreneurship? Okay, so those are the things we'll be looking at. All right, so the training outline. So these are the things, the subtopics we'll be looking at. Okay, defining Agsmeis, objectives, components, and processes of attaining its goals. Defining entrepreneurship. We'll break down to define what entrepreneurship is all about for you, and the types of businesses and vocational skills that we have in the country and across the world. Okay, consideration before starting a business. When you want to start a business, what are the things that you consider? What are the things that you look out for? What are the things you put into consideration before? Do you just jump into a business? You don't just because somebody is involved in one, a friend of yours is involved in one line of business and you see he's succeeding, and then you simply just jump into that same line of business. There are things that you need to look at. There are things that you need to consider. So we'll look at those things that you need to consider before starting a business. Hurdles in the path of starting a small business. What are the hurdles that you're likely to face if you are starting a business? Anything that we do in life, has its own peculiarities. You're bound to run into one challenge or the other. So what are those things that you are likely to run into when you start, if you're starting a small business? We'll look at those things, we'll try to highlight them. Then finally, sources of funding for small and medium enterprises. You are in this program today because you are trying to access funding, you are trying to access finances. So the Agsmeis loan scheme is a source of funding for small and medium enterprises. But apart from this, what are the other sources of funding when you want to start your own business? We'll look at that so that when you are not succeeding in one area, at least there are other options, there are other alternatives that you can look at to be able to help you in sourcing for funds to start, in order to start your own business. Okay. All right. So let's start by defining Agsmeis. Okay. Remember, we said the first topic is defining Agsmeis. So we're looking at defining Agsmeis. What is Agsmeis? We'll break down what Agsmeis is all about so that we'll be able to get a better understanding on Agsmeis. Defining Agsmeis. What is Agsmeis? All right, Nokia C1 raised his hand. Nokia C1, can you write your name so that we can know, be able to identify you? And if you have a question, you can go ahead and ask. If not, ordinarily, I'll say until we normally have some breaks along the line. Then you can ask your question. Go ahead and ask. That's a J Nobi. All right, J Nobi. All right, go ahead. You have a question? J Nobi. Or you can go to the chat room. You can go to the chat room and ask your question. Genobi, are you with us? You can go to the chat room. Then you can ask your question. It's Genobi should raise her hand. She wants to ask a question. Do I continue with Genovi? All right, since she's not forthcoming, I want to assume that she's going to ask the question through the chat room. So whatever it is, you can wait until the first segment and then we can take your question if you have any question. Or if it's very urgent, you can try to speak out, you can unmute your mic and then talk to us. Genobi, if you are still in the class, unmute your mic and then talk to us if you have any urgent question. Or if you want, preferably, you can go to the chat room and then you type out your question. Yeah? All right, so like I said, we'll start by defining Agsmeis. What is Agsmeis? What is Agsmeis? I'm sure you have come across the term before, because when you want to apply for the loan, you are told that it's an Agsmeis scheme. It's an Agsmeis loan scheme. Agsmeis is an acronym. All right, sorry, my mic was muted briefly. So I was saying that Agsmeis is an acronym, and an acronym is a word that you form from the first letters of words in the sentence. So for Agsmeis, it stands for Agribusiness, Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. So the Agsmeis is derived from the AG stands for Agribusiness. The SME, of course, we all know SME stands for Small and Medium Enterprises. The IS stands for Investment Scheme. So that's how we came about the word Agsmeis. So it stands on its own today as an Agsmeis, but actually it's an acronym which represents Agribusiness, Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. So it is an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Committee of Bankers, actually, and are supporting the federal government's agenda towards the promotion of agricultural businesses and medium and small and medium enterprises as vehicles for sustainable economic development and employment. What we're saying here basically is that Agsmeis is an initiative of the Committee of Bankers and CBN. And the whole essence of it is to support the federal government's agenda towards the promotion of agricultural businesses and small and medium enterprises. The federal government has, over the years, been talking about diversifying the Nigerian economy. We're all aware that the Nigerian economy is a mono economy. And when we say mono economy, it means that an economy that is dependent and reliant on just one main source of income for a country. Okay, in Nigeria, for example, Nigeria's economy centers and revolves around the oil sector. Almost 90% of our earnings, our revenue earnings, comes from oil sector. Over 70% of our foreign exchange earnings also comes from the oil sector. Okay, so Nigeria's entire business revolves around the oil sector, the oil economy, oil and gas economy. So the challenge that you have for countries that are mono economy is that the moment if there is any problem, any challenge with that line of business, then of course that country's economy runs into a problem also. And of course, we are all witnesses to it not too long ago. Nigeria has gone in and out of recession in the last two recessions in the last 2 years. 2016, Nigeria went into recession. After about a year, it came out. And then when the COVID situation came up again, Nigeria went into another recession. It came out of that recession barely about 4 months ago, but the indicators are still there that look, this economy is still not out of the woods and anything could happen. Anything could happen. So because of this basic challenge, the federal government has been mounting the talk about diversifying its economy. And where does it want to diversify the economy? It has identified agricultural businesses and the small and medium enterprises as the arena, as the new areas where it should concentrate to be able to provide alternative sources of earning revenue. Examples are given of countries like the UAE. The UAE, like Nigeria, also started as an oil-dependent country. But today, the UAE has diversified its economy to the extent that most of its revenue today does not come from oil. Most of its revenue, more than anything else, comes from tourism and commerce. Okay, so Dubai, for example, today has become the hub of the world. That's where most people go for their holidays. That's where most people from Africa and Asia go for commercial activities and all of those things. We know what Nigeria's relationship with Dubai is today. And that's the kind of thing that the UAE government has been able to do. That's what Nigerian government is also trying to do, okay? So the Committee of Bankers and the CBN, they looked at the situation and said, look, the federal government has been talking about diversifying its economy. We can be able to assist the federal government in that area as our own contribution, okay? And one of the ways that we can do it is the promotion of agricultural businesses and small and medium enterprises. These ones as avenue for sustainable economic development and growth. And how can they do this? It's through the setting up of the NISA Microfinance Bank. Okay, the NISA Microfinance Bank, as we know it today, is owned by the Central Bank and Committee of Bankers and NIPOS. The Committee of Bankers has 50% shares in the bank. Central Bank has 40% shares, and NIPOS has 10% shares. The 10% shares of NIPOS is covered through the provision of office space. For the National Microfinance Bank in all of its branches across the country. Okay? NIPOS has offices in the 774 local government areas in the country. Okay? In cities, it has 2 or 3 post offices in some cities. In Abuja, for example, I know there are about 3 or so NIPOS offices. If you go to a city like Lagos, Lagos has about 3 or 4 NIPOS offices in Marina, in Ikeja, and Apapa, and the rest of them. So in all of these NIPOS offices, there is supposed to be a NASA Microfinance Bank. And then, of course, because we're also aware that NIPOS has an office in each of the 774 local government councils in the country. So which means that in each of the 774 local government, there is supposed to be a NIPOS office, a NISA Microfinance Bank office, or branch rather. And why they are looking at this is that they want to make sure that we are all aware that, the rural areas are underbanked. Okay, so they're trying to push the NISA Microfinance Bank as much as possible as a rural banking institution, where banking services will be provided in the rural areas, where people who live in the rural areas are able to access easy funds, carry out their banking transaction. Those of us who are familiar with the rural areas are aware that today, in the rural areas, the only means of financial transaction today is through the POS services, okay? And that is just providing rudimentary financial services. It's not a bank. Okay, it's not a bank where you can go and deposit money and then process facilities like loans and things like that. But the NISA Microfinance Bank is intended with this arrangement with NIPOS to be able to provide them with the base, the office base, and then for them to be able to also provide the regular financial banking services in those rural areas. Those are some of the kind of things that inform the Committee of Bankers and the CBN to set up the NISA Microfinance Bank, basically to be able to provide easy funding for agricultural businesses and small and medium enterprises. We'll be looking at this in more details as we go down the line, but we should have in mind that the initiative for the Agsmeis loan scheme came from the Central Bank of Nigeria and then the Committee of Bankers, and that is for them their own way of supporting the federal government in meeting some of the challenges of diversifying the Nigerian economy from being a mono economy to a multiple sectoral economy. Right. Objectives of Agsmeis. What are the objectives of Agsmeis? First and foremost, to ensure that small and medium enterprises and agricultural businesses also, I should add, have access to finance. That's first and foremost. We're all aware that one of the major problems that people who want to start their own businesses, people who are into SMEs, people who are into agricultural businesses have is financing. Those of you who are on the program today, I'm sure you have your ideas of the kind of business you want to do. Okay, some people want to go into poultry business, others want to go into fashion and design, others in hospitality, and a host of other businesses. But the challenge they have in this area is that there is no they find it hard to be able to access financing, funding. So the objective of Agsmeis is to be able to provide easily accessible finances for people who want to go into this line of businesses. That's one of the first and foremost objective of Agsmeis. Secondly, to generate the much needed employment opportunities in Nigeria. We all know what the employment situation is in the country today. Today we are told that unemployment is about 37% in the country. Okay, we have so many young Nigerian graduates who have finished their university education, tertiary social education, have done their service, but are not able to find regular white-collar employment. Okay, so, and then we'll find them roaming about the streets. And recently, these issues were compounded with the COVID pandemic. Many of the, because of the shutdown of international businesses, shutdown of lockdown of countries all over the world, most businesses did not operate for the better part of 1 year. So most organizations laid off their staff. Okay? Most organizations laid off their staff or made them redundant. We are aware of banks, for example, who shut down branches. And in shutting down branches, instead of transferring the staff to other branches, what they did was to lay off the staff in these branches along with the branches that they are closing. So many people were thrown into the unemployment market. Okay, so what the Agsmeis loan scheme seeks to do is by providing easily accessible funds, loans to people who are unemployed, young graduates who are not being able to find jobs. That way, they'll be able to generate employment. Then it's expected that if you are able to access this loan, which ranges from between 1 to 10 million, if you are able to access up to 5 million, you're expected to be able to employ one person. If you access up to 10 million naira, you're expected to be able to employ about two persons. So where you have that kind of situation, the multiply effect, the number of people that we are taking off of the unemployment market by the individual who is starting that business himself has become self-employed and be able to employ 2 to 3 people. That in itself is a way of reducing unemployment. Remember that the government says that it wants to take about 100 million people out of poverty within the next 10 years. And taking people out of poverty essentially entails also providing them employment and then means of livelihood for themselves and their families and relations and communities. So that's basically one of the key objectives of Agsmeis loan scheme, generating the much needed employment opportunities. Thirdly, to boost the managerial capacity of agricultural businesses and SMEs as pipelines for growing enterprises that can become huge corporate organizations, What this entails is that this program, like I said, is basically targeted at assisting those who are coming on the program on how to manage their businesses. So it's a managerial business training. Okay. Apart from this very topic which we are having now, entrepreneurship and skills acquisition, in the subsequent days we'll be looking at financial feasibility studies and business plan. Okay. Before you start a business, you have to do feasibility studies, you have to develop business plans and things like that. Okay, so this is one of the key areas that will help you in your managerial capacity development. Then the third day, we'll be looking at financial planning and basic bookkeeping. Okay, how do you plan your finances? How do you keep records of accounts? All of those things are things that will be putting you through. Okay, and then of course, we'll be looking at sales strategies and effective marketing. Okay, how do you carry out sales? Okay, how do you market your products? Okay, because as you are producing, as an entrepreneur, as you're producing, you have to market your products. Are you going to have off-takers, or are you going to go into communities to market your products? All of those things are things that we'll be looking at. And then finally, we'll also be looking at business law. Okay, how do you register your business? Compliance requirements if you want to do business in the country. So these are the topics we'll be looking at. And at the end of it, we expect that at least you should be able to boost your managerial capacity on how to run and manage your own business. So that is one of the objectives of Agsmeis. And then finally, to develop agricultural value chain to ensure sustainable agricultural practices, not just the agricultural value chain, but also the small and medium enterprises value chain. And when we talk about the agricultural value chain or the small and medium enterprises value chains, we are looking at the entire gamut of agriculture. We all know that when we talk about agriculture, most instances people are looking at crop farming, crop production, but it goes beyond that. When we're talking about the value chain, we're looking at not just the crop production. Okay, we're looking at also the implements, the appliances, the fertilizer area. Okay, we are looking at the marketing component of it. We're looking at the processing, and then we're looking at the exportation. We're looking at the factories that are offshoots of agricultural practices. That is the value chain. So the value chain is a composite. It's a composite of all of the activities that are involved in the agricultural practices or agricultural business. So some people can choose to go into crop farming, okay, in agriculture. Is it rice farming? Is it yam farming? Is it maize, sorghum, and all of those onions, tomatoes, and things like that? Those are crop farming, okay? Others can choose to the business end of it, the economic business end of agriculture, where they are involved in supply of fertilizers, implements, seedlings, and the rest of those things. That is a component of it. You are also into agriculture if you are in that, okay? Or you could choose to go into processing. Processing could be in the area of things like rice processing, tomato processing, vegetable processing, fruit processing. Okay, these are all components of agriculture. So everybody chooses the area of his strengths. Others could go into the area of marketing of agricultural products. Okay, exportation. Okay, as you process, you are exporting. All these are the various value chain that we talk about when we are looking at in terms of agricultural value chain. The same also happens with small SME value chain. It's the entire component, the entire gamut of the agricultural business or the SME businesses, what it entails from the very beginning to the very end of it. So these are the things that the Agri law scheme seeks to accomplish. Okay. All right, so let's look at see the components of Agsmeis. Remember, we say Agsmeis stands for agribusiness and SMEs, the investment scheme. Okay, so let's look at the agribusiness component of Agsmeis. As defined, Agsmeis comprises of agribusinesses, okay, and the small and medium enterprises as a vehicle for economic development and employment. Okay, that's what Agsmeis stands for. So let's look at the agribusiness component of Agsmeis. Okay, the agribusiness component of Agsmeis. In 2019, agriculture contributed around 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP, surpassed only by industry at 27.38% and the services sectors at 49.73%. By the end of 2020, fourth quarter report, MBS reported that agriculture actually contributed about 30% to Nigeria's GDP, way beyond its contribution in 2019. So although Nigeria depends heavily on the oil sector, remember I talked about the oil sector's contribution to the Nigerian economy. Okay, Nigeria derives about 95% of its export earnings from oil, and over 70% of its government revenue comes from oil. Okay, despite Nigeria depending heavily on the oil sector, Nigeria is predominantly an agricultural society, with approximately 70% of the population, rural population especially, engaged in agricultural businesses, production at subsistence level. That has always been the picture. Before the coming of the discovery of oil in Nigeria, agriculture was the mainstay. Agriculture was the mainstay of Nigerian economy. Okay, Nigeria depended totally on agriculture for its export revenue and its export earnings. We talk a lot in those up to today historically about the granite pyramids, the oil, the palm oil and things from the southeast, and then the cocoa from the west. All these are agricultural activities. Okay, and then at the subsistence level, in terms of feeding ourselves, 70% of Nigerian population, which still lives up to today in the rural area, is engaged in agricultural business in one form or the other. Okay, so if you are looking at in terms of where you want to diversify your economy, you'll be looking at that area that is contributing substantially to the Nigerian GDP. The Nigerian oil sector contributes less than 10% to the Nigeria's GDP. In 2015, the contribution was 9%. In 2016, it was 8%. At the fourth quarter of 2020, the MBS report, which I just quoted, also said Nigeria, the oil sector contributed just about 8.6% to Nigeria's GDP. Okay, so when you compare that to what the agricultural sector is contributing to national GDP at 30%, then you, of course, you know that if you want to diversify your economy, you should be looking at that sector that is contributing substantially to the national economy. Okay, so it is this trend, that's the trend of the contribution of agriculture to the national GDP that the government wants to leverage on, okay, with its renewed focus on the agricultural sector in an attempt to diversify the economy from oil. Okay, this is also what has informed the current government's effort and devoted energy to initiatives like the Anchor Borrowers Program and now the Agsmeis loan scheme. Basically, what we're saying here is that, look, the government has seen the trend in terms of the contribution to the GDP. Okay, agri contributes about 30% to national GDP compared to oil that's less than 10%. Okay, so if you want to diversify your economy, of course, you know the area you'll be looking at, agricultural businesses. So because of this, the government has been very, very deliberate in supporting agricultural businesses and agricultural initiatives. And that's where we talk about the Anchor Borrowers Program. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Anchor Borrowers Program. Okay, this is also another initiative of the CBN. And here, what the CBN is doing is providing easily accessible loan, soft loan to rice farmers, okay, so as to be able to promote the production of rice. We know Nigerians love for rice, and then of course the kind of money we spend on rice importation. Nigeria has basically been sustaining countries like Thailand, like Myanmar, like Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India, who are the major producers of rice that Nigeria imports. Most of our foreign exchange has gone into the importation of rice to be able to feed our population. And the current government looked at it and said, how should that be? How can we continue to spend so much money on the importation of rice when we have the land, we have the resources, we have the weather, and all of those favorable conditions that we also should be able to produce our rice? Over time, Nigerians have been producing and eating our own local rice. So he decided to ban the importation of rice and then promote the production of rice in the country. So the Anchor Borrowers Program, initiated by the CBN, has gone into providing this kind of loans for people who want to go into production of rice. So we hear the wonderful stories coming out of places like Kebbi State, okay, where there are massive rice production fields, and then of course rice processing factories have cropped up in all of those places that have taken people in the form of providing the seedlings, the implements, and all of that, providing them with at least 3 acres of land for them to farm, and then they become the factories, the processors become the off-takers. They buy off the entire rice produced by these farmers that they have put together in the form of cooperatives. They buy off all of the rice they produce, so the farmers don't even have to go to the market to look for buyers. Okay, as they are finishing the harvesting, the rice millers are coming to take it off them. So that has changed the face of farming. Of course, we heard the stories in places like Ebonyi, in Benue, Ogun State, not long ago, just about 2 weeks or so ago, in the northeast sector, about 13 pyramids of rice, okay, were commissioned by the federal government, consisting of about 200,000 bags of 50 kg in each pyramid. Okay, these were recovered from the northeast farmers sub-region, through the Anchor Borrowers program. So all these are initiatives that the federal government has brought into play through the CBN for the promotion of farming and agricultural businesses. So that is the direction that the government is taking the country with respect to diversification. And as it is today, Nigeria is the largest producer of rice in Africa and the 8th largest producer of rice in the world. So more and more, most of Nigerian homes today, the rice that we eat is locally produced rice, because we have been able to change the technology so that our rice, unlike before, also goes through destoning, polishing, and it becomes very, very fine also for us to be able to sell and even export. So the expectation is that in the next few years, Nigeria should also begin the process of exporting its own rice, not just a net importer. Most of the rice that we see, foreign rice that we see in the country today, are smuggled rice. And of course, the government and customs are doing everything to make sure that they check the importation the smuggling of such rice into the country. And that is the direction to go. That is what the Agsmeis loan scheme, like the Anchor Borrowers program, is trying to also achieve. Okay, so that's the drive for promoting agricultural businesses, is a recognition of the contribution of agriculture to economic growth and development, in providing food for the expanding population, increasing the demand for industrial products, providing local foreign exchange earning for imports of capital goods, increasing social income, in providing employment, and improving the welfare of staff. So basically what we're saying here is that the government has recognized the position, the place of agriculture, in economic development, economic growth and development. It has also recognized that promoting agricultural businesses also goes a long way in providing food for the expanding population. Nigeria has a population of over 206 million people today, and there's no way Nigeria can rely on importing food for its growing population. No country does that. Okay, no country does that. If you try it, of course, all you are doing is subjecting yourself to the whims and caprices of the people who are providing you food. Okay, so that's why we talk essentially about food security. Anytime you hear about food security in any country, in any context, it's about the ability of the country to be able to feed its own people. When you are not able to feed your people, then of course you know that you are subject to being manipulated, dominated, and conquered and subjugated by the country that provides food for you. So all you can do is to blockade you and deny you the supply of the food which you import from their countries. So one of the key and principal things that the government has to do is making sure that it's able to feed its own population. That is critically one of the most important things that any government will do. Okay, and that is what the agricultural revolution and agricultural business is doing for us in this country today. It is also providing for the country in terms of providing the raw materials for our industrial production. Okay, most of the food that we process, most of the things that we process in Nigerian industries today are raw materials from agricultural businesses. Okay, if you're looking at the beverages sector, you are looking at the fruits and juice sector, you are looking at the tomato and puree sector. Most of these things are products from our agricultural sector. So the more production we're able to do, the more, of course, the demand, meeting the demands of our industrial production, okay? And now, of course, the ones that we're able to export also leads to earning of foreign exchange. And then as we're earning foreign exchange, we're also able to import capital goods for our manufacturing sector. And then, of course, increasing social income. The story being told today is that if you go to Kebbi State today, most of our young men that were previously walking the streets of this country doing menial jobs have all gone back to their home states and are engaged and employed in rice farms today, agricultural businesses today. So, and then the income coming from those areas, because like I said, as they are producing, the factories, the processors are buying those things off them. They are off-takers. So they don't even have to take it to the market to sell. Okay, there are people who, as they are producing, are coming to them right on the farms there to pick up these items. Those are off-takers, and these are already income for most of of those who are involved in the farming. And then, of course, that is an avenue for providing employment. The employment generation that we talked about, that is a specific area of employment generation. So it is these gains that explain the need to support the growth and expansion of agro-allied industry and its associated value chain. So the gains from agricultural businesses is why the government is clamoring. And then, of course, the CBN and Commission of Bankers came up with the initiative of the Agsmeis loan scheme, because that is the one way where we'll be able to expand the agriculture and agro-allied industry today in the country. So let's look at the second component of Agsmeis. The second component of Agsmeis. All right, we have looked at the agri component. Okay, so now we're looking at the SME component of Agsmeis. The SME, of course, we all know is small and medium enterprises. Okay, so where does the small and medium enterprises come in here? Let's also look at it just like we just looked at the agricultural businesses. The SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies, as well as important contributors to employment, economic and export growth. Okay, what we say, in fact, the key point that we are looking at here in this sentence is that the SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies. Major, mark my word, major developed economies, not developing economies. We're looking at major developed economies, not developing economies. Okay, and then of course, when we are talking about the major developed economies, we are looking at the economies of countries like the US, the EU, okay, China, and all of those major industrial countries. And when we say the SME sector is their backbone, we're saying that most of the productive activities, most of the things that contribute to their economic growth and export is based on the SME sector. I can give a simple example here. When we talk about most of the major corporations that we know today are actually started as SMEs. And of course, their history is recent. And I always like to give the example of Apple, for example. We're all familiar with Apple. Okay, when we talk about Apple today, we're not talking about Apple, the fruit, we're talking about Apple, the corporation. It started as Apple Computer. It migrated to become Apple Corporation. Today, it's simply called Apple. Okay, it has become such a brand that it's simply known as Apple. Apple today started in the garage of the parents of two gentlemen, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, okay, in the garage of their parents as Apple Computer. That Apple Computer is what has grown today to be a major corporation that is about $2 trillion revenue. It's about $2 trillion revenue. So Apple today is a $2 trillion company. When you compare it to Nigeria as a whole, Nigeria's entire economic revenue base, revenue earning is just about 486 billion compared to just one company, Apple, which is 2 trillion. It's a 2 trillion revenue base. Okay, and Apple started as an SME. Today, it is a major corporation, a major brand in the world. The same thing with Microsoft. If you go to China, you talk about Huawei, or you talk about Alibaba, or you talk about Amazon. All these started as SMEs, but today they are major players. They are the backbones of the major developed economies of the world. What about us here in Nigeria? Can we do that? Can we do that? That is the question that we're asking. Does that inform why the government, the CBN and Committee of Bankers want to move to diversify economy in that area? Why not? According to the Nigerian SME survey by the PwC 2009, in Nigeria, SMEs contribute 48% of national GDP. Remember, we said agriculture contributed in the fourth quarter of last year, 30%. Here, we are saying that the SME sector in Nigeria contributes about 48% to national GDP. That's about 50% of national GDP. And it accounts for 96% of businesses and 48% of employment. So 96% of the businesses that we have in Nigeria today are SME based. And 48% of those that are employed today in Nigeria are SME based. Remember that most SMEs are also informal, part of the informal sector. And most Nigerians are employed in the informal sector. Only about 1% of people are employed in the public sector in Nigeria today. Okay? 48% of those who are employed in Nigeria today are from the SME sector. That is how massive the SME sector is in the country today. Okay? So in Nigeria, SMEs in Nigeria constitute a total of about 17.4 million enterprises. They account for about 50% of industrial jobs and nearly 90% of manufacturing sector in terms of enterprises. When we talk about manufacturing sector in Nigeria today, the manufacturing sector in Nigeria today is not the same kind of manufacturing sector that we are familiar with previously. Back in those days, Nigeria had companies, motor vehicle companies, producing cars in Nigeria. The Volkswagen company, the Peugeot company, the Leyland, okay, the Star Motors, and all of those, the Amanco, producing Mercedes vehicles and trucks and buses. Today, most of those things are no longer around, are no longer there. We have companies producing tires, Dunlop, Michelin. We have companies producing batteries, okay, all over the place. We have companies producing seatbelts, car accessories. All of these have all disappeared from the Nigerian industrial landscape. If you go to Ikeja Industrial Estate today, what you find are these massive companies have all been taken over by churches. If you go to Kaduna today, as you're driving into Kaduna, and you look on the left side, where we used to have a chain of the textile companies, what you find today are bushes. I understand they are being taken over by car malls today, people who are selling second-hand cars. Okay, you go to Kano, you go to Sharada Industrial Estate, what you find are just small businesses, Indians who are just packaging small businesses in Nigeria. But 90% of the manufacturing sector as we know it today are SMEs, producing small items, not the major industrial output that we used to know in Nigeria. Okay? So that is the power and the position of SME in Nigeria. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with the Small and Medium Enterprises Agency of Nigeria, SMEDEN, the SME sector in Nigeria is strategically positioned to absorb up to 80% of jobs. 80%. That's if we build our SME sector to the position where it should be, 80% of the jobs that we talk about generated in this country will be based on the SME sector. It will improve our per capita income, increase value addition to raw materials, improve import earnings, enhance capacity utilization in key industries, and then of course unlock the economic expansion and GDP growth of the country. Okay, so that is the power of the SME sector. That is what the potential that it has today to make a difference in the country today. Okay, so it is this potential, that is the potential of the agribusinesses and the SMEs, which the government wants to explore. Okay, the government has seen the potential in agricultural businesses and in the SMEs, and it wants to explore it and to expand it. But it realized that there exists a missing middle. There exists a missing middle, which is that SMEs still find it hard to access funds. Okay, when it says there is a missing middle, it has identified that missing middle as access to funds. So while the government has identified that the small SMEs and agricultural businesses are the direction to go if you want to diversify, but there is a problem. And the problem basically is in terms of finances, finding the resources, okay, to be able to support this area of diversification. So the Agsmeis loan scheme is therefore government's response and solution to the missing middle, okay? So the government has identified that there is a problem, there's a challenge in access to funds, and then it has come up with the Agsmeis loan scheme, which it has seen as a solution and then as a response to this missing middle, to this paucity of funds, to this lack of access to funds, okay? By providing affordable and easily accessible funds to the vibrant sector, to this vibrant and explosive sector with a high potential to be a major backbone for Nigeria's economic development. So the Agsmeis loan scheme has come in as a solution. The Committee of Bankers, the CBN, have developed this concept, this solution as a panacea for the problem that we have with respect to access to funding, okay? And then, of course, the loan scheme is supposed to be easily affordable and easily accessible. And if you are able to achieve that goal, then, of course, the goals of diversification of the economy will be achieved, okay? All right, so we have finished with the introductory aspect of Agsmeis now. What we'll do is we'll open the floor, and then if you have any questions you want to ask, you can ask the question, okay? And then before we proceed to the next, aspect on entrepreneurship. All right, so let's open the floor, please, and then unmute your mic. If you have any question, you can ask the question. Our mics are unmuted now. You can ask any question that you have. All right, John Joseph, we have Ada, okay, Chikeze, Ruth, Moborio is there. And then, of course, Nikia, something else coming.
Good,
right.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Joseph.
Ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Maybe it's just a little clarification that I want to do. Yes, you know, you rightly said you use Apple as one of the examples to give. Let me just point only Apple. You said, if I got you rightly, that it started as SME. But today, Apple is a brand that everyone would like to be associated with. You understand?
Yes.
But what we have in Nigeria today, they are not encouraging. To be precise, even in this nasal CBN loan, I've had some people, because when I told them that I want to do the training, they said word for that there are some people that did the training since last year and they did not get a penny from government. Why am I saying this? I have a poultry that I'm running. Yesterday I wept because I stays in Kuje, and we have some farms, bigger farms in Kuje that my turkey are laying eggs, both foreign and locals. But the eggs are being wasted. I was looking for an incubator where the egg can be hatched, but I couldn't get any. This morning I woke up, I saw about 4 to 5 eggs being wasted. I told my wife that I'm finished. You understand? So if government, there are people that are up to something, but even the dream that you have, before you know, the dream will be going down and dying gradually. Now I'm just left at the mercy of God. If government can truly help people, not people that are genuinely out for a business. And these people, because what kills business or dreams is finance. You understand? So we, like in other countries where the system is working, they will help their citizens. We have seen where people that has a good plan, at the end of the day, because of lack of finance, they will be left alone. So I want to thank you and I want to appreciate you. I enjoyed, even if I didn't get any support from the government. Sincerely speaking, I'm being inspired, and I want to appreciate you that I've gained a lot. I did not listen. My listening is not in vain. It's not in vain. I want to appreciate you. I've learned something. Even if I did not get anything from the government, at least I want to thank you. And I will tell you that I will make sure I'll finish this class. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joseph. I appreciate a lot. Your concerns really are the concerns of all of us. Even for those of us who are running this program as EDI, we receive calls from many of our participants that have participated previously, and then of course the issues being raised, the questions being raised about the fact that after the training, nothing has come forth. Like we always like to explain, we have a responsibility, and our responsibility is to train and then provide all the necessary knowledge that we need to help people manage their businesses. And then, of course, the internal working of the bank is entirely out of our own hands, so we don't know how to go about it. But one thing that we know is that they have provided this loan facilities to quite a number of people, and we believe that they will still be providing it to people. So I don't like to make people despondent about the outcome of this. I always want to approach this thing with a very, very positive outlook, positive mindset. Okay, you hear the stories. I like your courage, really. I like your courage that people have tried to discourage you. Why do you want to go? Others have tried and nothing has come of it. But you say, no, I'll give it a try. Because when somebody has failed, it doesn't mean that you are not likely to be lucky. So you go with that kind of positive mindset. You genuinely want to go into this business, and you see where the challenges are. Okay, you give it your best. Give it your best try. God, of course, who hears us, who knows all of the things that we try to do, is the one that will come to our aid in the process of doing the best that we can for our country and for ourselves. Okay, we have also always argued. We had a meeting not too long ago with the management, and we raised the issue that, look, there are so many people. You are talking about helping the unemployed. There are so many people who have genuine businesses that they want support. They want people to be able to provide them the needed support to be able to grow these businesses. But nothing is forthcoming. How can they be encouraged? We need to do something about it. We need to really change the entire approach. And we have seen signs, really. Not too long ago, they upgraded their portal and said they will soon be dispensing of disbursing this fund. So we are hoping that maybe before this month runs out, or by next month or whatever, something at least will come out of it. So I'd like for us to be very, very positive in our approach and all of the things that we do, with the hope that there will be change for the better. So please, let's keep hope alive. I'm sure we'll have cause to celebrate our effort. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Right. Any other comments? I can see only Ruth is left now. People come and go. Any comment, Ruth?
Thank you, Mr. Oguche.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm in and out because of office work, so I missed some parts towards the tail end of the lecture. But I just want to plead, maybe for some of us, we can have like some write-ups, like maybe a chart or something that will help us to read over prior to when, because I've been told that we are going to do WAEC and GC and JAMB. So at least we use that to be able to answer the question. But I just want to say thank you very much. Thanks for the knowledge you've impacted in us, and I particularly, and you've been able to expose our eyes a little, so that we'll not just come, just take the loan, thinking that this particular business is the in thing now. And like you said, two people may not handle the same business the same way. So thanks for the knowledge, and I believe that we'll be able to put our best into it and bring our nation, Nigeria, to an enviable place in the world. So that is my appeal is, if we can have a little note.
No problems about that. At the end of this training, on this our WhatsApp platform, we normally post the slides. This is that slides that we're presenting now. You have it on the platform. And then, of course, as we are progressing with these lectures, you can see that it's recording live on YouTube. And then the YouTube recording will also be on the platform for you to read. And then if you want to listen, you can listen to it at your own time. So there's no problems there at all. But of course, as you go in and out with your work, we also appreciate if you remain in the class or come in and out of the class, so that we have some measure of interaction. Because as we are also impacting the knowledge, we also learn from you guys, from the comments that you make. It's a two-way learning process, so it's no monopoly there. So also appreciate your input as we go down the line. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we'll go back to our class now and then continue, okay? Right. All right. So all right. So let's start with entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? The class is depleted now, but let me challenge those of you who are in the class. Anybody can help me defining what is entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? Can I have some definition of entrepreneurship? What is entrepreneurship? You're all trying to go into one line of business or the other now. Basically, you're supposed to be entrepreneur. So can somebody help me define what is entrepreneurship? We have a chat section. You can go to the chat section and help me define entrepreneurship. Then we can continue. Let's take a minute to do that one. What is entrepreneurship? Go to the chat box and then do that. Those who are on YouTube, you can post it on a WhatsApp platform. Those on YouTube. Those of us who are following us on YouTube, you can also help us define it on the WhatsApp platform. We'll check, we'll have phones with us and we'll be able to check all of that. What is entrepreneurship? All right, so a minute is gone now. What is entrepreneurship, right? Well, I'll wait for our own definition. This is our own definition here. Entrepreneurship is a process of starting and running a business enterprise, right? Okay, somebody has defined it for us. Let's see. Okay, no definition has come. Just yes. All right. Okay, so entrepreneurship is the process of starting and running a business enterprise. Okay, anytime you start and you're running a business, you are into entrepreneurship. Okay, it involves investing capital in resources like people and in development of products and services to create viable commercial enterprise. Okay, so anytime you bring your money and then invest in people or invest in the development of products or services, you are into entrepreneurship. Okay, it is a capacity and then the willingness to develop, organize, and manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make a profit. Here, the definition is taking another dimension now. The risk, the profit motive has been introduced, and then the risk element has been introduced. Any business that you do, you go into most of these businesses with the intent of making a profit. And in making a profit, of course, you should expect to also run into some risk. All right, I have some two definitions here now from our chat box. Entrepreneurship is a business of skill that an individual can improve to increase cash flow. Yes, entrepreneurship is a process of starting a business with little capital. Okay, great. These are all correct. Different ways of defining it. Cost bottom line is that you're starting a business. You're starting a business with the intent of making a profit, with the intent, of course, with the willingness to take risk. So anytime you start a business with a profit motive, you want to earn something. Like Mr. Joseph, who has a poultry, of course, agonizing, saying that his poultry is suffering because he's not getting the needed support. Of course, but he has gone into this business not on a altruistic basis, but to make a profit. Okay, but then there are risks. And then, of course, it's the risk element that he's seeing now. The risk in terms of hatchery, for example, to hatch his eggs, is a major risk. If you don't have that equipment, you know, of course, you are taking a risk. Of course, when the rain is setting, when you have day-old chicks, you also run so much risk in terms of your productive capacity and the fear that will these birds survive this kind of critical weather, all of those things. So anytime you go into business with the aim of making a profit and then your willingness, okay, to take all the risks that come with it, is entrepreneurship. Any business that we do comes with, of course, a motive of making money, making profit at the end of it, and then their willingness to take risks. And each time we invest our money in people to develop products or services, we are creating, we are involved in entrepreneurship. So that's basically the definition of entrepreneurship, which I want us to have at the back of our mind. So the most obvious definition, example of entrepreneurship is starting of new businesses. Starting of new businesses. Anytime you start a new business with the aim of profit and then the willingness to take risks, of course, you are into entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurial spirit is characterized by innovation and risk-taking. Innovations and risk-taking. And it's an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global market. Okay, so again, we're looking at another aspect of entrepreneurship. Now, that's the entrepreneurial spirit. What drives a people to go into entrepreneurship? Okay, is the innovation, is the willingness to take risk. Today, we see a country, a world that is virtually polarized. And most of the polarity is coming from the competitiveness of people who are trying to gain access, okay, or gain a part of the global marketplace. Okay, the entire world is a global marketplace, and each country and its citizens are struggling to get a bit of the pie of that international market. We see the challenge today between the US and China today, and we find that most of the rivalry is so much because everybody is trying to cut for himself a pie, part of the large pie of the international market. We hear the US warning and telling other countries not to patronize the Chinese Huawei, the Huawei IT company that virtually is monopolizing the 5G IT system today. And why? Because, of course, they know that if the 5G, which Huawei is promoting, takes hold today, of course, most of the rest of the Western world would have lost a major chunk of the market. So, and then, of course, everybody is struggling to be able to develop its own 5G technology to be able to get a portion of that market today. We see China virtually taking over most of African market today, helping the African countries with developing their decaying infrastructure, the rail systems, the airport systems, and then most of the transportation systems, building up their decaying infrastructure across the world, roads and the rest of those things. We see what's happening in Nigeria today. We see what's happening in Ethiopia, Zambia, and the rest of African countries, driven basically with Chinese money. We see most of these countries forming one form of alliances or the other with African countries. All of them because they know the potential of Africa, and then of course they want a pie of that African market. Okay, seeing that the Western world that previously colonized Africa has virtually turned its back. But today, because of the efforts, because of the activities of China in Africa, they're beginning to show fresh interest. And all of those former relationships they're trying to build them up all over again. Okay, and then of course, it's the entrepreneurial spirit of the citizens of these countries that is driving most of this competition. And it's not just about the Western countries also, because even in Africa here, we see it happening. We have our own entrepreneurs today. A company like Dangote, for example, has over 12 cement companies across Africa. We see Glo competing with MTN across the entirety of Africa. We see our banks taking over the whole of West Coast, okay, buying up most of the banks in East Africa and South Africa. Just about 2 weeks or so, Access Bank bought one of the biggest banks in South Africa. And then, of course, one of the biggest banks in Kenya today has been bought also by a Nigerian bank. So all of these are part of the entrepreneurial spirit of innovation, of risk-taking, okay, that is driving the world today. So as the citizens of these countries are pursuing these new initiatives and this new drive into various countries, the support coming from the countries. So the competition becomes that of the countries, but the main drivers are the entrepreneurs of this country that are driving it. So that is the entrepreneurial spirit for you, okay? We want to hope that going forward, of course, we'll be able to see some of you who are on this program being able to also do virtually what the rest of the world is doing today. But in entrepreneurship, That is what drives people, the entrepreneurial spirit of innovation, of risk-taking, and that is what makes the world different. Okay, so who is an entrepreneur? Who is an entrepreneur? You and I who are on this program, who are willing to take the risk of investing money, time, and passion in development of businesses are what we'll see as an entrepreneur. Okay, so any person who takes the risk of investing his resources, his funds, his time, his passion in development of any business, okay, or several businesses is an entrepreneur. Okay, so that's the bottom line. Anytime you start, you are ready and willing to invest your money, okay, in people, their time, their passion to develop an enterprise. You are an entrepreneur. Okay, so, and then of course, another definition that resonates very much with me is by Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman defines an entrepreneur as someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. He jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. This is literal, really. Okay, because if you jump off a cliff, it's risk taking, okay? And you build a plane on your way down, you have accomplished the goal. You've made a profit. So any moment that you jump off a cliff or you take the risk of pursuing an objective, a goal, and you achieve it, you are an entrepreneur. So literally, Reid Hoffman says that an entrepreneur is anybody who jumps off a cliff. We all know what a cliff looks like, okay? It's a high, hilly area, mountainous, with sharp edges, and then of course with a river underneath with flowing water. Anybody that jumps off a cliff, of course, down a ravine knows that he's falling to his imminent death, okay? That's you are willing to take the risk because as you are jumping off that cliff, you either succeed or you fail, okay? And when you succeed by building a plane or achieving what you have set out to do, you are an entrepreneur who has achieved his goal, okay? So all of us on this program who have the aspiration of building our own plane when we jump off a cliff are entrepreneurs. All right, so the Wright brothers and their plane. The Wright brothers typify for me the definition of Reid Hoffman. Okay, the Wright brothers, we all know their story. It's because of them today, their vision, their determination, their consistency and persistence, that we have what we call the aeroplane today. The Wright brothers in 1903, 1905, up to 1905, 1906, 1908, started the whole concept of a plane. They had the vision that they can develop an equipment that can fly from one point to the other. When they came up with the idea, people laughed at them, scoffed at them, okay? So they built this contraption, which you can see today on the screen, was their first plane. And then, of course, it first achieved an elevation of about 853 meters. And just for 59 seconds, it lifted off the ground for just about 59 seconds, not even up to a minute, okay? And when they told people that they had achieved that feat, people simply laughed at them, okay? In fact, the Wright brothers, the senior Wright brother, Orville had to even leave the country, left the US and migrated to France, where he had more people believing in what he was able to do, okay? But because of their belief and their faith and their determination, today we are all the beneficiaries of their vision today. Today we have jumbo jets flying over 21 hours across the sea. We have rockets going to space. We have all manners of planes, fighter planes, and then jumbo jets that are carrying massive equipment from one country to the other. We are able to fly from Nigeria to the UK to the US within 6 to 8 hours across space. That is something that it's only the work of the imagination of an individual who could visualize it and then, of course, go ahead to build an equipment that will be able to accomplish that equipment. So this, for me, the Wright brothers typify the definition of Reid Hoffman, okay? The ability to jump off a cliff and then end up with a plane at the end of it. On the screen again, we can see another modern day Wright brothers. For me, I consider this gentleman today's one of the Wright brothers. I don't know how many of you recognize him, but if you do, he's Elon Musk. I'm sure you have heard about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is the founder and owner of, creator of SpaceX. SpaceX is an aeronautical engineering company that builds rockets, which he uses in transporting people to space. His ultimate ambition is to be able to take people to conquer Mars and settle in Mars. But for starters, what he has succeeded in, he wants to do is to be able to take people into on vacation exploration into orbit. And so far he has succeeded because his craft, his rocket engines have been, shuttle planes have been able to go to the International Space Center. The second batch of people are in the International Space Center today, where they will be there for the next 6 months. They'll be out of the Earth for the past 3 to 6 or 4 months now. They'll be there maybe for another 2 months or thereabout. In fact, the first African American was on that flight. Okay, currently doing a whole lot of research in the International Space Center. Well, that is his aspiration and that is his vision. Elon Musk also is behind today the Tesla cars. I'm sure you've heard about the Tesla cars. The Tesla car is the electric cars today, okay? And today, Tesla is the highest selling vehicle in the world today, taking over from Toyota with over 800 billion naira revenue, okay? Taking over from Toyota. And today, Elon Musk is the richest person in the world today, taking over from Bill Gates and the man in Amazon, okay? That is because of innovation. And just last week, we saw him doing a whole lot of research with monkeys and with implants, okay? And then, of course, we saw the monkeys drawing on canvas. And of course, that is research in medicine. The research is driven in medicine to help people who are coming down with dementia, people who are losing their senses through dementia, through Alzheimer's. So these are people who are carrying out researches by the day in different fields of human endeavor. Okay, so when we talk about diversifying the Nigerian economy today, because of the effort of people like Elon Musk, we know that we have to do something about diversifying our economy, because the electric car is targeted at providing solution to the climate change problems that we are having in the world today, the carbon emissions, okay, the ozone depletion, and all of the challenges that has led to the Paris Accord of 2020, okay? How do we reduce carbon emission? If you are going to India and China in the last few years, even before the advent of coronavirus, where you see people wearing masks, in those countries, most of the time during the day, you simply have to wear masks because of the dust emission, because of the carbon emission in those countries. And one of the solutions, of course, is to build electric cars, reducing the fossil oil driven cars that is the source of most of this carbon emission in space today. So we have to do something about it. So when people talk about our oil in Nigeria, like Bill Clinton told us when he visited Nigeria in 2002, your wealth in this country is not in the soil, but in our brains. And the earlier we begin to use it, the better. Okay? That's why we said that Apple is a $2 trillion company today, but Nigeria, with all its oil and everything, is a $486 billion company, if you want to take Nigeria as a company. And Apple is a function of the brain. Nigeria is a function of what is in our soil. So there is a world of a difference between what we can produce from our brain and what we can produce from the soil. Okay? We'll be looking more at more of these movers and these entrepreneurs that are changing the world today. What does an entrepreneur do? As an entrepreneur, what do you do? Okay? An entrepreneur identifies a need that no existing business addresses and determines a solution for that need. That's the bottom line. That's simply the bottom line. That's what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur looks at the community, the environment, the society. There is something missing. There is a vacuum, and he finds a solution to fill it. That's what an entrepreneur does. Simple. Nothing more than that. You guys want to go into one line of business now. You have noticed that there is a vacuum. There is a need, and you need to fill it. Mr. Joseph is running a poultry farm. He knows that there is a need for protein, for eggs, for meat, white meat, and he's chosen to go along that path. Well, he's facing some challenges, but that is the solution he has found. an individual comes to a community and finds that people in that community are drinking from the stream. And he says, why? With all the diseases and all of the health challenges that come with it. I said, no, we should do better in this community. And he sinks a borehole. He provides water for the community. As an entrepreneur, he has provided a solution for the people in that community, for their water needs. He can choose to bottle the water and sell to them. He can choose to bottle it as a sachet water, or he can choose to simply put a number of tap heads where people can bring their buckets and then fetch the water and then pay token amount of money. But he has provided a solution, and he needs to make money, so he makes money out of it one way or the other. That's the bottom line, what an entrepreneur does. All the other definitions there, all the other comments there are simply by the way, but the bottom line of what the entrepreneur does is identifying a problem, providing a solution. That's the bottom line, okay? Examples of successful entrepreneurs. While discussing Apple, I talked earlier about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. They are the people that started the Apple computer, like I said, in the garage of their parents. And today, the Apple computer, which started around 1976, is a major corporation today. In fact, don't even call it corporation anymore, simply call it Apple, a $2 trillion company. Bill Gates started about the same time with the Apple chaps, okay? He also started from the garage of his parents, okay? He created the Microsoft today. He's one of the wealthiest persons in the world today. When Bill Gates started, he approached IBM. I'm sure we all know IBM. IBM is the producers of mainframe, major computers of those days that could occupy a whole floor in a company or in a factory, processing all their materials for them, doing their IT processing for them. And he approached IBM and said, look, we can produce microcomputers which we can place on the desks of every individual in America and then in every home. The people in IBM scoffed at him, laughed at him that it was not possible. But that didn't dampen Bill Gates' vision. Within a decade, he has succeeded in producing the Microsoft computers, the Microsoft software, and then produce the computers which were placed on those computers. Today, every computer, every laptop that you have in the world today, you are likely to find a Microsoft product, making Bill Gates one of the richest persons in the world for a very, very long time, one of the richest individuals in the world. Okay. Today, he has moved away from the IT into medicine. We'll be looking more about that. Then, of course, I've talked about Elon Musk already, who is the founder of SpaceX, an aerospace and then a rocket manufacturing company, and then, of course, Tesla, the electric car and the solar company. He's doing a whole lot of things all over the world. That's Elon Musk. Okay. Then, of course, all right, these are their pictures. Steve Jobs, lost Steve Jobs in 2011 to pancreatic cancer. Bill Gates is still around with us, doing a whole lot of things. And then, of course, we have again Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is, of course, the co-founder and owner of Facebook. This also started as an SME in his Harvard University dormitory, barely in 2004, barely 13 years ago. He's just about 34 now, okay? Within a decade, within 5 years, they already have over 500 million users. Today, there are over 2 billion users, and it's running a company, with a revenue base of over 6 billion, okay, for a 34-year-old child, okay? And then, of course, unfolding newer products by the day, okay? All right, so we also have Nigerian businessmen. I gave the example of Dangote and what he's been doing. But here are our own entrepreneurs today. They all also started as entrepreneurs. Tony Elumelu, who all know, started from the banking sector. Mike Adenuga, Dangote, who are all familiar with, Tedola, Woshika. These are Nigerian entrepreneurs who also are doing wonderful things. Dangote, we're all familiar with his story. Today is Africa's richest man with vast interest in cement, sugar, oil and gas, and a host of other businesses across the whole of Africa. Tony Elumelu also made his fortune in banking, and today he's empowering new entrepreneurs across the world on a year-to-year basis. But because of the COVID situation, so last year was missed, and I believe that this year I saw an advert which they intend to also follow as in previous years, where he brings together new entrepreneurs from the whole of Africa, young entrepreneurs that he's supporting one way or the other, providing them seed money to develop all manners of enterprises and businesses. Some are into IT, some are into agri, some are into all manners of businesses that you can think about. And then he brings them in every year, and then everybody showcases his products. And then they believe and they hope is that in the next 10 to 20 years, this crop of new entrepreneurs that have been empowered by the Lumelu Foundation will be the core of African entrepreneurs doing wonders in Africa. Okay. So this, of course, a poster from 2019 Lumelu Entrepreneurs Program. Okay, he's doing a whole lot of great things, and we pray that his aspiration works out. Right. This another entrepreneur. I don't know how many of you recognize him, but I know somebody came on this program with one of his products. He's doing a whole lot of things. Sir Joseph, who said that in Nigeria, some of those things like Apple might not be very successful. This gentleman here, his name is Nnamdi Ezigbo, might prove you a little bit wrong, because Nnamdi Ezigbo is, I hope you don't know whether you guys have heard his name, but I'm sure you have come across his product or heard about his product. He's a founder and CEO of Slot Nigeria, and then the co-founder of Techno and Infinix phone brand. So for us in Nigeria, Nnamdi Ezigbo is like our Apple computer, our Apple iPhones, Samsung, okay? He is the founder of Infinix, the Techno and Infinix phone brands, and then one of the fastest selling mobile phones in Nigeria today. It's within the reach of everybody. And like we said about entrepreneurs, you see a gap and you feel it. And that's the typical story of Nnamdi Ezigbo. His is a typical story of the typical Nigerian young graduate who graduated in 1976, and after his service, looked all over the place for a white-collar job but couldn't find one. So what did he decide to do? He settled down as a computer repairer, as an apprentice in a computer repair shop. Okay, when he graduated, he set up his own shop selling computers and cell phones. Okay, in the course of doing that, he found most Nigerians coming into his shop with more than 2 handsets. I said, why are people carrying those many handsets? Then he thought about it. Why can't we form a cell phone with dual SIMs? Okay, he approached Nokia, and Nokia said, no, we'll rather produce as many handsets as possible for people to buy. Okay, of course, it made sense, because the more you produce, the more you sell, and the more money you're able to make. Not when you limit the number of handsets through dual SIMs, and then, of course, it reduces your sales figures, because any salesperson wants to sell as many as possible. He approached a young Chinese guy who just left his job with a mobile phone making company, and then, of course, sold the idea to him. He bought it, and of course, they went ahead and started Techno with the dual SIM. Today, to cut the long story short, today Techno has taken over the Nigerian market, and then, of course, they introduced the Infinix phone to also be able to meet the gap within the market segment. So Techno today is the fastest selling phone in Nigeria that is easily accessible to most Nigerians within a very reasonable cost limit, and then, of course, performing virtually the same kind of jobs that your iPhone and Samsung is able to do. And then, of course, like I said, there's one of us on this platform who is presently assessing this program using a similar handset, using a similar device. That is a contribution of one of our young entrepreneurs, Nnamdi Ezigbo. So in Nigeria, of course, we can and are also capable of achieving such goals. We've seen from what these 5 individuals, entrepreneurs have shown, and we've seen what the young Nnamdi Ezigbo has also been able to achieve. And why not the rest of us on this program, if we have that same kind of level of determination, come up with such innovations, we will definitely be able to accomplish similar goals. All right, types of entrepreneurship. Forbes 4 types of entrepreneurship. This actually, this types of entrepreneurship was derived from the work of Job Abraham. He came up with he wrote a book titled The Entrepreneur DNA, where he identified the different types of entrepreneurship that we have in the world today. He said, like the human being, entrepreneurship is also driven by different DNAs. We all know what the DNA is. DNA is the genetic marker, it's our genome that defines and determines each individual. No two people are the same, not even twins. Every individual is different from the next person. So also he identified with entrepreneurs that different DNA drives the various entrepreneurs. Some are innovators, some are specialists, some are opportunists, some are builders. Okay, that is the differentiation he was able to make. He said the builders are those who believe in building massive empires and infrastructure. Okay, so if you are talking about major builders of infrastructure, for example, in the world today, we are looking in countries like South Korea, where they have these massive infrastructural companies. When you talk about Samsung today, for example, Samsung is not just a handset. Samsung is a massive company that incorporates both electronic materials, home facilities, shipbuilding, and all of those segments. So that is typically the kind of entrepreneurs that you find, entrepreneurship system that you find in South Korea. The innovator, these ones start a business because of the passion for innovation. They are driven by innovation. The passion for innovation, for creating new things drives them. So people like Mark Zuckerberg, for example, is driven by that passion. It's not the money. It's not about the money. It's about creating new things for humanity, for mankind, to change the world and things like that. Those are the things that drive people like that. Then you have the specialists. People like Bill Gates, for example, they are the specialists. The expertise drives people like that. Creating the Microsoft, then moving away from the IT, moving seamlessly into medicine, creating vaccines and discussing vaccines. When you hear Bill Gates discussing vaccine today, you think that he's a medical doctor. Well, it's none of that. But that's the kind of passion that drives him. Gets involved, gets so deep, dug into anything that he puts his mind to, and then sees that he builds things like that. Then the opportunists, this one sees an existing gap and then provides a business to fill that gap, to service that gap. People like Nnamdi Ezebo, for example, people like Richard Bryson, for example, who came to Nigeria. Richard Bryson, I'm sure you are familiar with him. He's the owner and then the owner of Virgin Airlines, Virgin Islands, Virgin Company, Virgin Trains, and all of those things. He came to Nigeria. He saw the opportunity in Nigeria. He saw the rate of travel in Nigeria. He saw the kind of business BA, Emirates, and the rest of these international companies were making, like Lufthansa and the rest of them. And he also brought his Virgin company, airline, to Nigeria, and then went into collaboration with Nigeria with the Virgin Nigeria, though the experience didn't last because of our typical Nigerian attitude. But that is somebody who sees an opportunity and then goes in to fill it. Okay, why we're emphasizing this particular section in this program is that as an entrepreneur, like Job Abraham says, you should be able to identify what drives you, what drives your entrepreneurial spirit. Okay, what kind of DNA do you have? Is it that of an innovator? Is it that of a builder, an opportunist, or a specialist? If you know the kind of DNA that drives you, then you'll be able to know the kind of system, the kind of business you want to go into, the kind of line of business you want to go into, the strategy that you want to adopt, the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. Okay, that basically is what drives you. Identifying, knowing your DNA will help substantially in the kind of business you go into, and it will help you with the kind of people that you surround yourself with, the kind of business that you'll be able to pursue. So that is that's why it's important for us to know the kind of entrepreneurship that we are going into. Okay, types of businesses for consideration. Let's look at the type of businesses for consideration before we take another break, and then so that we can ask questions if we have any questions to ask. There are several types of businesses that an entrepreneur can consider going into in Nigeria, and of course, it's applicable across the world. because the businesses, they have similarity of businesses everywhere. Okay, it's a simple talent or a passion can drive off a business that can be a means of livelihood for an entrepreneur. Here in Nigeria, most of the businesses that are readily available can see on the screen here. You have fashion. We know what the fashion industry is like. Farming, small-scale manufacturing, catering, buying and selling, event management, animal husbandry, school business, daycare, well, hospitality and eateries, restaurants, snacks, photography, publishing, dry cleaning, cosmetic and beauty industry, health services, because we have vocational skills like electrician, plumbing, carpentry, masonry. All these are various types of businesses that we can consider. With vocational skills, for example, ours is, we have a dearth of such skills in this country. We know that the construction industry in Nigeria is very, very massive. In Abuja, for example, this is a territory, a city that will be under construction for the next 50 years and above. But what we find that if you go to most of these construction sites, most of the people that you find in these construction sites are from the West Coast. They are not mostly Nigerians. They are from the West Coast of Togo, Benin, and Ghana. Most of our young chaps are rather on the streets pushing wheelbarrow and doing menial jobs. So if we are able to set up vocational training institutions to train this kind of people, it's a worthwhile kind of business area that we can also go into. So that's something that we can quite consider. All right. Before we proceed to the next session, which are things to consider before doing a business, let's open the floor once again and then be able to take some questions. Okay? So you open the floor in a moment so that you can ask questions. Okay? Iman? So come on, open the floor. Let's, it's only Ada that is left. John, who was with us since, has disappeared. The system just went up. Yeah, Engineer Chikeze, it looks like you're the only one left in the class for now. You have any question? John and Ruth have gone off. You can unmute your mic if you have any question. She has also gone off. All right, for benefit of those who are on YouTube, we'll go ahead and continue while the others come back to the class. And if you have any question, you can always go to the chat box and ask your question there. All right, so things to consider before going into business. What are the things to consider before going into business? Like we said earlier, it's before you go into any line of business, before you go into any line of business, you should consider a whole lot of things, a couple of things before you go into any line of business. You don't because you see an individual, a friend or a relation doing one business and you think that no, it's something that I can also equally just go into. He must have taken certain things into consideration before going into that line of business. So you also need to do your own feasibility studies, market survey, and the rest. Tomorrow, my colleague will come in and he'll be looking at feasibility studies in more details. Okay, how you go about doing a feasibility studies before you go into business, whether the business will be viable, will it be sustainable, and then the kind of analysis, what analysis you need to do to determine if that line of business will be successful in that area. So those are the kind of things that you need to look at. So before going into business, there are certain things you need to consider. So what are the things that you need to consider? First and foremost, you have to determine, is there a demand for that business? Is there a demand for that business? Okay. Is there a demand for that line of business? All right, so first and foremost, the question you have to ask is there a demand for the business? Is there a demand for that line of business, the business you want to go into? Is there a demand for it within your environment, within your community? Okay. If there's no demand for it, then of course you have to think twice about it. Okay, because many businesses fail. Many businesses fail simply because the entrepreneur set up a business that sold products and services people don't need. Okay? People simply don't need that line of business, because if you don't do it, your feasibility studies or market survey, and you just start that line of business, of course you are most likely going to run into that kind of situation where you set up a business and then you begin to sell things and services that people don't need. Or you could set up a business that produces or sold products and services that people want or cannot afford. Okay, people might want that product. I gave the example of the guy who comes to a community and finds that people are drinking water from the stream. Okay, and then he chooses. He looks at. He of course sees the health challenges within that kind of setup, and then decides to set up a borehole. Okay. But one of two things, this is a product that people will need, but can it be affordable? If it chooses to create tap heads where people can come and bring their bucket and then buy a bucket of water for 10 naira, you find that people will be able to afford that. But if it sets up a borehole and decides to produce sachet waters or bottled water, then there's likely going to be a challenge. Because if he's selling the sachet water at 10 naira, the sachet water at 10 naira compared to a bucket of water at 10 naira, there is always a differential. Or a bottled water at 100 naira, there's a differential. You find that maybe people within that community will not be able to buy the sachet water at 10 naira or the bottled water at 100 naira. So in doing that, in setting up that business, we know that you're going into it for the profit motive, to make profits. That's why you're willing to take the risk that you took. But then, of course, it should be something that people can be able to afford. If not, you are going to run into a problem. Okay? Right. You need to ask the question, are there other people doing similar business, or are you bringing something new to the table? Okay? That's an important question that you have to ask. Okay? Is the business you are bringing, is it already existing? Or if it's existing, are you bringing something entirely new? If you are starting a business in an area where the market is already saturated, the business might fail, as you may find it, you are struggling just to keep up with the competition. So it's very, very necessary and important that if you are coming into any line of business, you should be able to come with an entirely new thing. Okay, if not, you might run into some kind of challenges. If you want to set up a bakery, for example, in a community, and by the time you arrive, you find that there's already a bakery, then of course, and you still insist on setting up that bakery, then of course you should know that whatever bakery you are setting up should be producing things that are different from what is already in existence. If not, you are going to run into a problem because the whole place is saturated with bread and you might not be able to get the market that you want or make the money that you want. So it's important to do some research. Basically, when we say research, it's like feasibility studies or market survey to find out areas where the competition is not properly serving the customer and then position your business to fill that gap. Okay, do your research, find out area where there's no competition, where the competition is not satisfying customers' need, and then you fill that the existing gap in that area. That is very, very important, key and important before you continue with the business. As an entrepreneur, you have to work hard to differentiate your product and bring something different to the market that no one has ever seen. That is your USP. Okay, your USP is a unique selling point or proposition, something that differentiates you from the rest of the market, something that marks you out from the rest of the market, not just simply one of them. But anytime they mention your own product, of course, there is something unique or different about it. Yeah, I always like to give the example of the dairy market, the dairy or milk market in Nigeria. We're all familiar with the milk market in Nigeria. Pig milk has dominated the Nigerian dairy market for quite a long time. Okay, and of course, as a dominant product in the market, it had a controlling share of the market. Pig milk, we all know, was sold in cans and liquid form, evaporated milk. Okay, selling at that time for about 15 naira per tin. Okay, and it had prominence and dominance. Okay, and no other dairy company was able to challenge it. And then suddenly, 3 crowns came into the market. 3 crowns came into the market, and people are wondering, where will these guys make the difference? And what 3 crowns did was to come into the market by producing powdered milk in sachet, and then selling for 10 naira. Okay, it was powdered, it was in sachet, and then the price was 10 naira. So it was targeting an entirely different market segment of people within the low-income earning group who also needed milk for their own tea and for their own beverages, but could not afford the 50 naira pig milk. And people who did not have access to refrigeration when they are not able to finish a can of tin milk. Okay, and when 3 crowns came into the market, suddenly it generated a whole lot of patronage. So much patronage that it took up substantial part of the market shares of milk. Okay, today we find in the country today that most companies, even pig also, has also gone to produce sachet powdered milk, okay, and selling at very, very low interest, low cost rate to be able to meet the demands of that market segment, okay. And then today, of course, we have canned powdered milk sold by the different companies. All of it is as a result of what 3 crowns was able to introduce into the dairy market in Nigeria. So as an entrepreneur, you have to work hard to differentiate your product. What you are bringing into the market should be very, very different from what is existing in the market currently. That will be your own unique selling point or unique selling proposition. Finding out something that makes your business stand out is critical to the survival of the enterprise. Okay, so for the business to survive, to stand out, you have to come with something that makes it very, very different from the rest of that line of business in the market. All right, things to consider before going to market. Determine what needs are there. What are the things? What are the things that people need within that community or environment. So you need to determine what needs are there. What businesses exist to satisfy those needs? Okay? If there's no business currently satisfying those needs, it could mean that one of two things, that either people have not thought about that line of business, or that there's not enough market to make setting up the business viable, or that the cost of carrying out the business is in that environment could be too expensive. So these are some of the things that may be responsible for why certain lines of business are not available. So you need to determine what the needs are there, why certain businesses are not within that kind of community where you find yourself. Okay, the business not satisfying the needs, it could mean that maybe nobody has thought of that line of business, or that the market is not big enough for the business to be viable, or that the cost of carrying out the business in that environment might be too expensive. So these are things that it's important that we also be able to determine. How do you determine what needs are there? You need to ask questions. Okay, you have to ask, surprised what kind of responses people give. You could administer questionnaires, which people can respond to tell you what they need. We use social media as feedback. Social media is one of the fastest sources of spreading information and then getting information today. Be able to get all the feedback you have. And most young businesses and enterprises today, you see they're advertising their products on the internet, on the WhatsApp groups, for example, where they belong, on Facebook, Instagram, and the rest of those things. So the social media is a very, very important component of businesses today, as we know it. Okay? So you could also look around and observe things that are not available, and then of course you'll be able to fill the gap there. Right. So I was heading to the last stretch. Main barriers to starting a business. What are the main barriers that people might have in starting a business? What are the main barriers to starting a business? Like I said earlier, everything that we're doing in life, anything we want to start, there's every likelihood that you might run into some kind of challenges in the course of starting that line of business. You could run into some barriers, some obstacles along the way. Okay, if you want to start your own businesses, they are bound to run into some of those kind of challenges. But the important thing, what makes the difference, is the ability to overcome the challenge that you meet along the way while starting or running your business. So what are these barriers that people might run into, when you're starting your own business? We'll look at them so that, again, we'll prepare our minds and see how we're able to overcome those challenges. First and foremost is money. Money. That is why most of you are on this program today. You need the money, okay, to start the business. And how do you get the money? Okay, money is a very critical and vital resource an entrepreneur needs to start a business, and probably the most critical barrier to starting a small business. Exactly how much do you need to start, and where do you get it from? Okay, where do you get the money from, and how much do you need? Okay. Secondly, lack of knowledge. Many businesses fail not for lack of capital, but because the entrepreneur had little knowledge of the business. So while for some it's money, for others it's lack of knowledge. Some people might have the money, but they don't have the knowledge of how to run the business. So you might see a business that is thriving, and you think, oh no, I can also do this business. But there are certain underlying knowledge that you require before you start that line of business. If you simply go and start the business and find that as you take off, you are running into some basic challenges here and there, as you might not be able to, as you might not know all of the things that are required to run that business successfully. When are the peak and low periods? The business you want to go into, are there low and peak periods? If you are into farming, are there peak periods for your farm produce? Are there seasons when you should go into productive activities? So these are things that you should be very, very familiar with, things that you should know before you go into any line of business. What sudden change in the environment can affect the business? Government policy or taxes? Okay, we are aware in this country, for example, the consistent changes in government policies. Today, government is pursuing this line of policy. The next day it makes a U-turn, and it's an entirely different kind of business that it comes up with. Okay, I'd like to give the example of the experience of maize farmers in this country some few years ago. Okay, the government came up with a policy of banning the importation of maize. Okay, because that we believe is something like rice that we can produce abundantly in the country to be able to meet all our needs in terms of both for feeding, for feeds, and all of those things. Okay, and for industrial output or industrial input. Okay, so it decided to ban the importation of maize. And many farmers rushed to the banks to take loan facility to expand their maize farms or to start maize farms to be able to fill the gap, which the ban on maize has led to. Only for them halfway into it, poultry farmers started complaining about lack of feeds for their poultry, for their farms. And government just made a U-turn by lifting the ban on the importation of maize to be able to meet the demands of the poultry farmers. Okay. By the time this maize started coming into the country, the ones people borrowed money to invest in had not started producing. So by the time they started producing, they found that there was a glut in the market. There was such a glut in the market, and then of course the money they borrowed, they were making losses, and the money they borrowed from the market, they had to finally had to be able to repay. So you need to be very, very careful with the kind of changes that we run into in this country. Taxes are also similar areas. We have issues of multiple taxation in the country. We have issues of changes in the taxation policy. VAT changing from 5 to 7.5%, stamp duty moving from 5% to 6%. All of those things are issues that, as you are going into business, you should have some measure of familiarity with them. If not, you might run into some kind of challenge along the line. Are the products perishable? If your products are perishable, then of course you need to think about alternatives with respect to providing preservation processes in running that business, in that line of business. Okay? If not, you might run into some basic challenges along the line. How long does it take to produce your goods, and will it affect your ability to meet your customers' need? Will it affect your ability to meet your customers' needs? Okay, so these are things that you need to be very, very cautious about. If your production line is such that it does not synchronize with your customers' needs, then of course you have to be very, very familiar with it and know how you are able to turn your business in such a way that it meets the requirements and then the timing of your customers. Determination. When we talk about determination, is when we go into business, when we are starting businesses, there are instances when we run into a problem, run into some kind of challenge. First thing for most people is to simply give up. Put your hands on your head and give up. But like I said, any business that we are going into, there's every likelihood that you are bound to face some challenges. You might face some failure, or you might face rejection. But if you want to succeed in that line of business, you have to show determination. The determination of what we call a bulldog, okay? To be able to smash through the obstacles, you have to remain focused. Even if you fail, pick yourself up. If you face rejection, find new solutions, change strategies to make sure that the business succeeds. Like we say, entrepreneurship is a long haul, okay? It's a marathon, not a short race. But if you give up at the first challenge that you run into, then of course you find that you are going to have problems. But if you show determination, okay, unwavering determination, not to give up, okay, changing your strategy, finding new solutions to why you failed in the first place, then of course you can be sure that you'll be able to make a success of that line of business. But giving up at the first obstacle, of course, could be a major problem for you. Okay? Fear, our greatest enemy. Fear is one of the greatest barriers to people starting a business. What if I fail? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I'm rejected and people say no? People like Bill Gates, Thomas Edison, Honda, the Wright brothers either failed or were rejected at the time, one time or the other. So that is something that we have to be very, very cautious about. What if I fail? So what if you fail? What if I make a fool of myself? Of course, it's yourself. Okay? So that's not something that should bother you. Okay? When you've tried the first time and you fail, try again. Okay? Find another way around it. Bill Gates, like I gave the example of Bill Gates when he approached IBM. When they turned him down, then they rejected him. That didn't deter him. He continued. Thomas Edison, for example, in creating the electric bulb, tried it more than 11 times. It was the 12th try that he succeeded. Honda, for example, when he was starting in Japan, they were laughed at. They said that there was no way they were going to succeed. But of course, today, Honda is one of the major brands that we have in the world today. The Wright brothers, we had their stories, of course. They failed at the first time. People laughed and scoffed at them, but they continue. Today, we are the beneficiaries of their foresight and determination. Okay, they're consistent, refusal to give up, and that is why we today have all the planes that are flying all over the world today, taking off from point A to B at the shortest possible time. So that's something that we need to be very, very cautious about. Something we need to be to remain focused on. Like I always like to say, one of the problems that we have in Africa is that we have not been able to overcome fear. Fear is a major challenge for us in Africa. We fear everything. We fear the dark. We are superstitious. Okay, the slightest of, challenge that we face, we ascribe all manners of meanings into it, dark meanings into it. Okay, the Western world has overcome fear, and that's why they've been able to take people to the moon. That's why the International Space Center. That's why they go exploring all manners of things all over the world. Okay, I like to give the example of Zuma Rock here in Abuja. Okay, no Nigerian has been able to scale over and climb the Zuma Rock for fear, superstition. But not too long ago, we saw some foreigners came into the country and they scaled the Zuma Rock in no time. And that was the second group of people to do it. This time they did it faster because they used another route. And we have not been able to do that because of fear. Until we're able to overcome the fear, innate fear that we have in this country, we're always going to have the challenge of making progress or accomplishing goals in the world. Okay, lack of support. Many small businesses lack support in the critical areas of need. Okay, you want to start a business. Most of you in this business today, in this program today, want to start their own businesses, but you find that you don't have the necessary support. Okay, and these areas of support will be in the areas of funding. Few financiers are willing to support small business startups. When you approach them, even when you know that they have the resources, they simply are not willing to be forthcoming. They are not ready to give you the resources you require. Okay, so that is a major problem. Legal and regulatory support. Difficulty in fulfilling registration requirement for companies. Okay, in the next few days, one of my colleagues will come in to discuss issues of business law, then the legal requirements for registration, and then regulatory compliance, and all that for you to do business in Nigeria. Most people who want to start business in Nigeria today always have problem of registering their companies. The length of time, the number of months they have to wait to be able to register a company. I know the government is working hard on the ease of doing business by reducing the various processes and procedures for registration of companies, the number of steps that you need to take to do a whole lot of meet certain business requirements. So all these are very, very important. But the lack of support in those areas has been a major source of most people who want to go into business or start their own businesses. And that is an area that we need to be very, very familiar with, so that we're able to overcome that. Sources of funding for small businesses. What are the sources of funding for small businesses? Of course, we are on this program for purposes of loan. Okay, Okay, but apart from loan, there are other sources of funding. Equity, they include equity, loans, grants, cooperative loans, crowdfunding. Right. So let's take a look at the one after the other. Equity. Equity is an investment made in the shares of a business. It is made with an understanding that the investor will get a return on their investment, an appreciation on the capital that they have invested. Okay, equity, like it says, is a straightforward investment procedure. Anytime you approach a stock exchange and buy shares, of any business or any company that you are interested in, that you believe is doing well. That is an equity shareholder, buying of shares. Or somebody wants to start a business and then approaches people to buy shares in that company to be able to raise the money for him to start running the company or the business. That is equity. Okay? Equity is a good source of funding for entrepreneurs, as it is more long-term in nature and gives the entrepreneur some time for the business to take root. Okay, as you're providing that seed money by buying shares, it reassures the entrepreneur, because as you're investing, you know for sure that it's a long-time entrepreneur, it's a long-time investment, because the project has to, the enterprise has to take root, mature before it starts to pay a dividend. So equity is a very, very good source of funding for small businesses. So what are the sources equity? Where are the sources of equity funding? Equity funding comes from the following source: from savings, from partnership, from investors, and family. Okay, you all know what savings are. Savings, of course, we know are very challenging, but it takes a lot of effort, discipline, and sacrifice to be able to put money aside to start a business. In a country where the take-home pay is very, very small, savings, of course, is always a major challenge. But many people have found a way of going around it, either by going through cooperative societies where you force yourself to make some savings, and then, of course, as you're paying your money into your bank, you are leaving a certain amount of money on a monthly basis. You are forced to do that, okay? Because it becomes very handy for you in the future if you want to start your own line of business. So fund saving is a critical aspect. Then, of course, partners who show interest in a line of business could be able to provide equity, invest in it. We have investors, and then we have angel investors. All these are different types of investors that bring in their money to buy shares in their business. Family and friends, of course. These family and friends are usually the first source of investment for most young startups. Okay, I'm sure most of you are on this program who is starting your business must have first and foremost approach your family and friends. Okay, it's when you finish with that level before they now begin to invite you that if you want this business to expand, then you have to approach financial houses to be able to borrow more substantial amount of money with all the terms and conditions for you to be able to run or start or run that business. So family and friends are critical source of equity also. All right, loans. Most of us are on this program because we want to access the Agsmeis loan scheme. So what are loans? A business loan is money given to an entrepreneur to finance the purchase of an asset or buy the business's recurrent expenditure. These are the two key areas that monies that we borrow or money that we acquire to finance our business goes into. Purchasing an asset, that's equipment, or the business recurrent, that's the money that we require for our day-to-day expenditure. Okay, loans can either be interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing. Okay, in the format, as the borrower and the lender agree on the rates. Okay, that's in the interest-bearing loans. We agree on the rate. The loan is tenured for a specific period, and at the end of the tenure at maturity, the borrower must pay back the loan to the lender together with the interest that has accrued. That is the basic principle of loans. Okay, you have to agree. The lender and the borrower have to agree on the rate. That's a percentage which is giving you the loan. It is for a specific period. That's its tenure. The repayment period will be 5, 7, 10 years. For this one, for example, is 7 years. At maturity, you have to pay back both the principal amount and then the interest bearing. And then, of course, there are non-interest bearing loans. These ones are derived from Islamic banking principles, where interests are not charged on the loan. All that you do is a profit sharing structure, where if you're making money, you're sharing the interest with the lender. And if the business fails, what you need to do is to sell the assets and then share it equitably so that nobody loses at the end of the day. So that's the base, non-interest bearing components of loans. All right. So loans can be accessed from banks, money commercial deposit bank, money deposit bank, or Microsoft banks. Of course, like we said, it comes with interest. It's interest bearing, maturity period, and then of course tenure, a specific time frame. And then of course partners also, this could also be a source of loan for people who want to go into business, people who show interest in their line of business. Grants. Grants are funds given to small businesses by donor organizations. Usually, donors do not retain an interest in the business. However, they provide the money for use to the donor, who sets up the process and ensures that the money is appropriately utilized. Most instances, grants could come in the form of not in monetary terms, but in equipment and items and advisory services and the rest of those things. The donor agent might decide to buy all the equipment you require for that line of business, ensuring that you are in that business. And when they provide the funds, they provide such a way that they are able to monitor it closely, and as they are implementing a component, they are releasing the other monetary component. Okay? Donor organizations are usually predisposed towards grants to small businesses involved in social enterprises, like businesses set and run by NGOs, faith-based organizations, and the rest of it. And then, of course, grants are given by government organizations, development agencies, family trusts, not-for-profit organizations, wealthy individuals. We have so many popular donor agencies in Nigeria today, agencies, foreign agencies like the DFID, USAID, and all of those. Those ones are organizations, donor organizations that are able to provide grants to individuals and companies who want to go into their businesses. Sources of grants in Nigeria: SMIDEN, major source; DFID. DFID is the Department for International Development; Shell Life Wire Funds. Shell Life Wire Funds, funds provided by Shell Development Company, that's the international oil company operating in the Niger Delta area. Here they are able to provide funds for young Nigerians, individuals, and groups who want to start their own businesses. The whole essence is try to discourage people in the Niger Delta area from the militancy and destructive activities that disrupted oil exploration in that region for quite some time. By providing these life wire funds, Shell is able to assist the many young Nigerians who want to start their own businesses, own their businesses, and it's been doing quite well also. The Tiwa Nigeria Foundation, Back on Industry, MTN, all these are donor agencies that give grants. Cooperative loans. Cooperative loans, of course, is very, very popular in Nigeria. Almost every organization that we go into has cooperative society, where individuals come together, independent individuals come together, and then pool their money together on a monthly basis. Then are able to give offer mutual support and cooperations to each other. Individuals within the cooperative contribute their monies, and these funds are either used to fund the activities of the cooperative or given out as loans to fund individual businesses of interested members of the cooperative. That's one of the things that cooperative societies do. Many of the people in the cooperatives are able to use that to maybe pay rent, buy cars, pay school fees, start their own businesses, and a whole lot of other things. So the cooperative societies are very, very vital and critical sources of funding for small businesses. Crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a process of raising funds from individuals through the internet. These are new systems of generating funds, really. It's very, very formal, very, very popular, sorry. Many of those kind of initiatives on the internet, people are able to make a lot of money through it to start their own businesses. Some individuals could come up with some business idea, put their posts on various platforms, either WhatsApp groups or Facebook or Instagram and the rest of those things, and then market their products, pitch their products. And individuals who were interested in that line of business or product could send in money, could buy shares of that product or to support that product. And then, of course, as they make their own money from there, they are also able to diversify into other areas. In other instances, individuals send in money either as reward or for a reform and things like that. So these are very, very important areas. There are so many of those successful crowdfunding companies that we have around today. The Forever Products, for example, is an important crowdfunding business. The Alliance Global Alliance business, which is Filipino-based but very popular in Nigeria today, where people join the business as online downlines for people who are already in the business. As you contribute your money, you make you buy some of these items which they sell along with the products, which they sell along with the money you send in. And you could sell that one and make your own money by the side also. It's been quite lucrative and people have made a lot of money out of it. But you doing that also, we have to be very, very cautious because of the tendency to defraud people online through Ponzi schemes. Ponzi schemes have been very, very popular. We know of schemes such as the MMM that cause a lot of havoc in the country with so many people putting their hard-earned money and then virtually losing all of their fortune in the process. So that's for crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a new initiative and a very, very critical source of funding also. All right, so I've come to the end of the paper. I want to thank you very much for your time, sharing part of the day with us. Most of you have left the class. We only hope that those who are on YouTube are with us presently. Having said that, question and answers, since they are mostly not here. So if you have any questions, you can ask it on the WhatsApp platform, and then we'll be able to answer response to your questions. All right, on this note, let me thank you very much for sharing a part of your day with us. I wish you all the very best going forward today. We will converge again this time tomorrow to continue with the lectures. Tomorrow, my colleague will come in, Mr. Amancha, will be presenting a paper on feasibility studies and business plan. So these are very, very important topics, and we advise that you try and key in to the program. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day ahead of you. Bye.